Good morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John Becker. With us this morning, the top lawyer in Knox County. She oversees a staff of 85 people and happens to be the first woman elected to this post, just elected to a second 8-year term. District Attorney General Charme is with us, and it's great to have you with us, General. And also somebody it's great to have with us, my colleague Robin Wilhoit. So thanks for being with us.
Great to be here as well. Thanks.
General, let's start with a big question, and that is, what is your biggest challenge in your office right now?
Biggest challenge, probably what relates to the most crimes would clearly be drugs. Drugs in our office. Drugs really touch so many more crimes than I think people actually realize. Sure, they get when we arrest a drug dealer that crime is actually related to drugs. But what a lot of people don't understand is the vast majority of our thefts are related to drugs, all the way down to our shopliftings. Most of our shopliftings are people going into stores, stealing merchandise, and then selling that merchandise to be able to go out on the street and buy drugs. Our DUIs, when I started many years ago, all of our DUIs were typically alcohol related, and they typically happened late at night. When I was growing up in Georgia, my daddy always said, be home by 11 because nothing good happens after 11, which was pretty much the truth back then. If you were on the roads after 11, it was usually people coming home from bars. Not anymore. We are making arrests around the clock for DUI with people because of drugs. We have arrested people, I think you guys have certainly reported on it, in the drop-off line at school. Moms actually passing out in their minivans with their kids in the car. So certainly many of our homicides are related to drugs. So I think that most of the crime in our community somehow, if you go back far enough, will relate to a drug issue.
So General, when you talk about drugs specifically, what are the drugs that we are seeing?
Specifically, the number one drug that we see in those folks that overdose here is fentanyl. The most deadly drug we have on our streets is fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. Fentanyl really came on the scene a few years ago. What really kind of happened historically here in Knoxville is that we had many pill mills back in the teens. And law enforcement did a fantastic job of shutting down most of these pill mills. But what people were doing that were frequenting these pill mills was becoming addicted to opioids. And so when we closed the pill mills, all these folks with an addiction had to have somewhere to go, so they turned to the streets, and it was a supply and demand issue. We had a demand here, and so we really saw an uptick in heroin. And so people began buying heroin on the streets, and then we began to see that heroin cut with something called fentanyl. And fentanyl is an extremely potent, extremely deadly opioid. As a matter of fact, you can die just from coming into exposure, having it on your skin. A very, very small amount of fentanyl will kill you, the same size of a grain of sand or a grain of salt. If you get that in a carfentanil and a fentanyl analog, a tiny, tiny piece will kill you. So we began to see the fentanyl, and so most all of our overdose deaths now, the number one drug found in those is fentanyl, and that's the main drug that we are dying from. But we're also seeing a lot of methamphetamine on our streets, as well as the heroin.
We want to talk about the 313 pipeline issue because this is an initiative between you and other district attorney generals in this region.
Correct. That
we've been reporting on because of this link between the city of Detroit, the 313 area code, and Knoxville, which extends really to the city of Atlanta. Explain this new effort and what you hope will come of it.
The 313 initiative is really a collaborative effort, and what makes it work so well is because so many law enforcement agencies are working together and sharing information, as well as so many district attorney generals. It is a collaborative effort of those of us in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th judicial districts. And it really is the Knoxville Police Department, the Knox Sheriff's Office, as well as TBI and DEA. And what we do is drug dealers have no limits on where they sell drugs, right? They don't stop at the county line and switch. But our laws do. our ability to prosecute, our law enforcement's jurisdiction does. So this collaborative effort has really opened it up to the whole East Tennessee area. Those 5 judicial districts now share information, law enforcement shares information, and we are able to work together to stop that pipeline from Detroit, because like you said, that is where the vast majority of our drugs come from. And it has been extremely successful. I was just looking at reports from just this past Sunday. Okay, so one day, Sunday, there were, I think, 10 arrests with people connected to Detroit, both here in Knoxville and in Detroit. 10 guns removed from the streets, and numerous grams of the drugs we were talking about, fentanyl, heroin, methamphetamine, all taken from the streets just on Sunday. And what's happened out of this is we had always worked with the Detroit law enforcement, and they had been good to work with, especially the state police up there. But the actual City of Detroit Police Department, as you can imagine, is overworked up there. And so we hadn't really established a great relationship with them. But through this initiative, they have reached out, we have reached out, and there is a great collaborative effort between local law enforcement and Detroit City Police. And so that's why I think specifically on Sunday, one of the cases, I can't go into the details of it, but very connected, great teamwork between the two cities and law enforcement.
Does this give you hope?
Yes.
Because when you look at the numbers of the ODs last year approaching that 500 mark, something like this, are there other things that need to be done to finally tackle this problem?
Yes, because like you say, there were nearly 500 overdose deaths last year, and that was up 50 from the year before, 50 from the year before. So we're just continually seeing that rise. You know, before COVID, we had really gotten a handle on it. I think we had around 250 suspected deaths in 2019, and we were really doing well, and that's still a great loss of life, but that was a lower number. Our numbers had started to go down. But the pandemic, COVID, you know, it wrecked everything. Well, it certainly had its effect on the drugs. And so ever since that year, we have seen a steady increase. And so I think we are capable of taking that number and lowering that number and doing well. And I say that because we've done it before. We had hope before, and we had seen a turnaround in 2019. And so, yes, it gives me hope that we're working collaboratively. It gives me hope that we now have a really good relationship with a great source in Detroit, and the collaboration between all of law enforcement here locally. Yes, I think that we're really sending a message to Detroit. We don't want you here. We won't tolerate you here, and we will punish you with the greatest extent of the law that we can use. And hopefully that message will get out.
We've got to take a quick break on Inside Tennessee. Back with more with Attorney General Charme right after this.